It's been reported there could be a breakthrough in the decade-long investigation into the disappearance of Madeleine McCann.
Yes, the Daily Mirror today leading with the news that police are keen to speak to a worker from the resort in Portugal where she vanished in May 2007.
Well, the search to find Madeleine has cost the British taxpayer £11 million so far, but no trace of her has ever been found. Here's Pip Thompson.
Missing since the evening of Thursday, May the 3rd, 2007. Kate and Jerry McCann's relentless search has been led by the Metropolitan Police, the force launching Operation Grange in 2011. They investigated 8,000 potential sightings and took nearly 1,400 statements. With no firm leads, the operation was scaled back in 2015. Last year, then Home Secretary Theresa May granted a further £95,000 to keep it going. Now another £85,000 has been made available. Total cost to the taxpayers so far, £11.1 million. So is it time for the McCanns to let go, or is it impossible to put a price on solving the mystery of Madeleine? Pip Thompson, Good Morning Britain.
Well, this campaign has attracted a lot of heat, a lot of argument, a lot of debate. Karen Danchuk has been very vocal about this on social media. Karen, you join us from Manchester via Skype. And in the studio here we have former senior Met Detective Sue Hill alongside criminologist Dr. Graham Hill, who worked on the original investigation into Madeleine's disappearance. Let's start with Karen Danchuk. Karen, you sort of represent a lot of people on social media that have been very aggressively anti the continued search for Madeleine McCann. Why do you feel that way?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm aggressive. I've got an opinion like thousands of other people out there, and you know, I've never targeted any hate towards them. It's just my opinion, which is shared by many people, and it's just, I think the McCanns have to expect that because it's taxpayers' money, let's not forget. So there will be scrutiny regarding the whole case.
OK, we're just going to try and fix the sound on that microphone, Karen. Just talking to Sue Hill here in the studio, former Met detective, you were very senior in the Met. You agree with Karen, don't you, that we shouldn't put more money into this investigation?
I think, Susanna, there comes a time, we're not talking 85,000 going into Madeleine McCann now. That won't even pay for the cost of the officers to run the inquiry. I suppose with the backdrop, having run the Murder Command for London, knowing that how many outstanding murders there are out there at the moment, under-resourced, there's been huge slash cuts to the Met's budget, and sometimes you just have to put sentiment to one side and say, enough is enough. You've got to make those bold decisions.
You're saying murder. You're assuming you know what happened to Madeleine McCann.
I don't know what happened.
I mean, you just compared it to murder
I'm talking about resources, Piers.
No, but what could be a more high priority for the police than investigating the disappearance of a 3-year-old girl, is what I would throw back.
What about all the other, you know, children that are out there now whose parents are watching this programme saying, what about my child? What about those undetected murders in London, here in London, that are not being resourced? Now, I have utmost sympathy for the McCanns. It is tragic. It's terrible. But really, 6 years on, the reinvestigation's been going on, and now they found one line of inquiry. Well, you know what?
But the argument, and we spoke to you earlier about this, the argument is the original investigation by the Portuguese police may have been a botched investigation, and the British police may now be able, potentially, to solve this.
Well, it's not maybe, it was botched. There's no doubt about it.
You were there, right?
Yeah.
You were involved.
There's no doubt about it that the things that we would have done when a child goes missing in the UK were not done in a timely fashion by the Portuguese police, which is why the British police got involved in the first place. If they'd have been capable of dealing with it, we would have taken a step back, which is part of the reason why we've ended up doing the investigation that we've ended up doing for the last 6 years. And when I wrote the review about what was done and what wasn't done, it was very clear that there were lines of inquiry that weren't pursued in this investigation. And if there are still lines of inquiry that may be fruitful, they should be pursued.
How can that botched investigation be fixed 10 years on?
Well, it's hard to say, but the bottom line is you shouldn't give up trying. If the officer running that investigation for the Metropolitan Police believes there are legitimate lines of inquiry that could take them to a place where they know what happened to Madeleine McCann, then they should pursue them regardless of the cost.
Right, Sue Hill, look, the Daily Mirror front page, all right? The police are hunting for a worker from the resort where she disappeared. He was at the Ocean Club, interviewed by detectives at the time. British police fear he may have kept secrets he hasn't shared with them. Surely the police have a duty, given that information.
Right, and 10 years on, Piers, hear me out.
Yeah.
10 years on, the investigation's been going on. Let's draw an analogy with Stephen Lawrence. Botched investigation, 24 years on, still being investigated.
Well, what's wrong with that? Why shouldn't it be investigated?
Well, what about all the other murders? What you have to do is look at what's in front of you, the cases where we have murders happening today that are under-resourced across the country.
What about the search
deal
of
with
Ben
what's in
Needham?
front
Would
of
you
you.
stop that as well?
Yes, I would, actually. Yeah, I would. If I had to make difficult choices, you don't have to make difficult choices.
I don't, but what is your time frame then for a
resources.
missing child? I need to know, because I've got 4 kids. If one of them goes missing, how long do you, Sue Hill, give
Piers,
me?
You're just being difficult. No,
I'm not.
You don't have to make difficult decisions about budgeting.
I'm putting to you the logic of your argument. Is at what stage do you believe a missing child you should give up on when there's information which may potentially save the case?
But well, it's taken 6 years to reinvestigate since 2011.
But there is new information, Sue.
Apparently.
We've spent £11 million.
And I just said to you...
And this might help solve the case. Do we not have a duty to do that?
We have a duty to everybody, just not where you live and you can bend the Prime Minister's ear. It depends. Every child and every victim has the right to justice. However, what I'm saying right now, not everybody gets that same resourcing, and this is being over-resourced, in my opinion.
What do you think has happened to Madeleine, and will we find out? I mean, if £85,000 is being spent extra, it suggests that police think there is a genuine possibility that we can solve this case.
Well, I've been asked this question many times, and I've studied men both in America and the UK that abduct, abuse and murder children. That's part of my research. And I can tell you that most young children, below the age of about 3 or 5, they go missing for 2 reasons. One is they wander off and fall down a hole and never get found. The other is they get taken by someone. And what you need to do when you investigate child abduction is act in a timely fashion and explore all the information and collect that information, because you never know what bit of information is going to be useful 6 months, a year down the line.
And we hear stories, you know, of girls being found 18 years recently.
They're quite rare, though.
Yeah, but they do happen.
Yeah.
And if you're the McCanns... I mean, you said to me earlier an interesting thing, that there's a lot of blame put on the McCanns. One of the reasons why it attracts so much aggravation, if you like, so much controversy, is because a lot of people in this country, for whatever reason, believe that they are partly culpable for their girl disappearing because they left her to eat 50 metres away at a restaurant. You were there, you've been at this resort, you covered the thing. What is your view of that argument, that they basically partly brought this on themselves?
I think it's nonsense. I think there, but for the grace of God, go lots of people that go on holiday with their children. You know, they get 2-3 weeks off a year. They weren't that far from, in a direct line, it wasn't that far from where their daughter was asleep. They believed that their children were safe. And like I said to you earlier, I know people that live in large houses in the country that have a barbecue at the end of their garden that were further away from their children while they were asleep than the McCanns were when their daughter went missing.
And can I just say this, though? I have reinvestigated and investigated numerous murders in London. I had to make difficult decisions when there is no more resources. And when you've done that, you know, I have huge sympathy, but actually there are many cases, and I can think of one right now, a young boy down in South London, student, undetected, did nothing wrong, this young boy. And I'm sure his mum and dad are screaming at the screen saying, please, Sue, could you get some justice for my son too? That's the kind of balance I'm trying to say.
I think it's a perfectly valid point.
But justice isn't fair. And ultimately, this investigation has become a political animal. And because it wasn't done properly, it's become a political football.
Yeah.
We've lost the sight of the fact it's about a child.
We're all going to feel very differently about this if, as a result of this tip-off, this leads to somebody being arrested and charged and getting to the truth about this, particularly if she turns out to be alive somewhere.
Absolutely.
You know, who knows where this goes? It is complicated.
I get it.
I just think so many people take a moral view about the McCanns.
I'm not taking a moral view.
And any parent, I mean, look, I wouldn't have done what they did, but having interviewed them, your heart breaks for these people.
Well, I've interviewed lots of people, peers, who've lost their children.
I do get that point, Sue.
But this is about finding a child. We should not forget that.
I don't think there's any bigger priority. I really don't. Other than
Sue and Graham,
keeping a country safe from
indeed.
terrorism, finding missing kids has got to be top of the list. Anyway, it's a debate that will continue, Rage. Thank you both very much for coming in.